Okay, I guess we're going to get started. I'm pretty sure that most of you in here know Jeremy, probably a little familiar with him. You're going to get a preview if you don't know already, if he hasn't told you. Jeremy, turn around. Okay. Jeremy is part of the FTA training program. Okay, he will be an FTA now at the event. So the events in Arizona, he'll probably be running them more, and I'll be sitting in my recliner as much as I can, unless he gets into trouble. So for those that don't know me, I'm Nate, the FTA for Arizona. I do events in Colorado, California, championships in Houston. So I just actually got notified a couple days ago that I got assigned for a divisional field in Houston again. So that'll be really fun. So you'll see some pictures in here of 2019 at Minute Maid Park from my point of view. That was the Einstein Finals FTA for the 2019 Deep Space game. So I got a pretty interesting perspective of the field. So we at ARL last year, Jeremy came to me during the events, kind of, do you really do this every time? Like, does this kind of stuff on the field happen all the time? And I had been so jaded from my first year of doing this since 2016 that as things happen to robots on the field, it just bypasses me now. Okay, he had fresh eyes on it, so we decided to do this as a help us help you. Okay, if your robot dies on the field, we're trying to figure out what's wrong, but you need to help us during build season to do that. Okay, you'll get examples of that up here, and I'm pretty sure that in your shop he's probably gone, why did we do this? And we need to change that. Yeah, never. Right? So you'll get some some good examples of what not to do's here, which kind of interesting anecdotes along the way as we're doing stuff. Don't hold that down. Okay. One of our main jobs at an event, okay, we get the event set up, we run it in the background, a lot of stuff you guys don't see. I'm pretty sure it was very eye-opening for him at state championships when he first saved my bacon a couple years ago, as well as doing actual regionals this year, that there's a lot of stuff that happens in the background that you guys never see, which is a good thing. If things are running great, you don't see it. You don't see any issues. If things aren't running great, we try to hide it as much as we can. Okay. Sometimes it's hard. Last year, not last year, not 2 years ago, 2022 in Flagstaff was, if you saw me, I was climbing up and down that hub the entire event in Flagstaff, trying to fix issues. We were working with First Headquarters on our event was the biggest problem child of that year. Okay. We worked out procedures so that they could fix them later in the season, so other events didn't run into that problem. The Scottsdale event, a week later, ran beautifully, okay, because of the work we put in to get that working in Flagstaff the week before, okay. So main thing that we do during an event, we're troubleshooting robots. We're getting you guys connected in the field. Once connected, once a match is running, if a match stops or a robot stops, we're trying to figure out what's wrong, okay? You'll see us go over to it, try and figure out, things. Different things we use to troubleshoot, okay? One, just our eyes, but we're looking at status lights of all kinds of stuff around the field, okay? On the robot, on the driver stations, in the area of the FMS, okay? That gives us indicators as to what's going on, okay? We use the FMS field monitor, okay? This is a display that you'll see on the side of the field that looks very similar to these, okay? The one on the left is a great image. That's what we want to see, okay? All green circles, white lines across. Every row is a robot on the field, okay? Team number, and each column has a meaning to us. From left to right, okay? The one on the right is bad. Like, there's some serious issues going on, on this field. we can read this and figure out which robots we need to look at while it's going on. This one happens to be at the end of a match. You know, the match is over, so this is what it was after robots started disconnecting. But it gave me a good example of certain things like this. If we ever go over to you and say that, you know, you're connected, your Ethernet cable's in, but your DS is not connected to us at all, this is why we know this. Okay, the circle with the X in it says there's an Ethernet cable plugged into your laptop, but other than that, it's not seeing the driver station. Your software is not running. You have, even if you have the wrong team number, it'll still show it. But typically, your driver station is not running, so you need to start the DS software. E-stopped, okay? You'll see that you'll see that after a match, the team is e-stopped. That tells us we can stop troubleshooting that robot. Okay, we don't need to worry about it anymore. It will continue to show that to also tell us we need to release the e-stop on the field. Okay, the stack light that's right above you in the driver's station will also tell us that. The yellow light on the bottom means that the e-stop was enabled in the last match. Okay, so it's our clue. One of us will have to go over and check it to make sure that it's released. The W, if we ever go to you and say, you need to move over there, that's what told us, okay? It's either a W or an M, depending on what status the FMS is in. W just means you're in the wrong match, okay? An M means move. Typically, the M's will be here and here, because 1 and 3 are flipped. 2 is very rarely flipped, but 1 and 3 will be. Except on practice day, okay? You get assigned your station, you do need to be in that station on practice day. Or if you're a filler, we need to know where you're gonna be, okay? Because the FMS assigns you specifically what's going on, where you're supposed to be. So, is there anything that you come up with normally?
Did you want to talk about bandwidth utilization on this one?
Oh, that's right. That's why I did that one. From over here, I can't see it. There is actually this display here. The white rows mean you're fully connected, means a robot's great, okay? The reason why I chose this specific picture, though, is one of the columns on here, the second one, is the bandwidth utilization. Anybody know how much bandwidth you're allowed to use on the field? Come on, this hasn't changed for a couple years. 4 megabit, okay? Total bandwidth of 4 megabit. Your control packets, the ones from the FMS to the driver station that happened every 50 milliseconds. There's 20 packets per second, 50 millisecond intervals that tell your driver station what mode you're supposed to be in. Auto, teleop, disabled, e-stopped, okay? Those are prioritized. So every once in a while, are any of these over 4? Yeah, this one's over 4. 4.107, okay? Over 4 are the control packets. So those will not get dropped. But video, your actual commands to the robot can get dropped. They're eligible. There's no QoSing other than the control packets, okay? So you want to kind of keep these down. In the case of this, the match ran. It ran just fine with all of that going on. 5 gigahertz, we have a pretty good spectrum to work with, okay?
How do we know before a match that we got DC like that?
One, you can ask us. We will be able to tell you. This, we have the field monitor, like you normally has it on your phone, right? If Noah, my brother, is there as an assistant, he typically has it on his phone or a tablet, and I will have it on my watch, okay? That's also another thing that he wanted me to point out. If you see us on the side of the field during a match, something like that, and he's staring at his phone, I'm looking at my watch, he's not watching YouTube, I'm not trying to make sure that we're running on time or anything, I'm literally watching the field monitor. Most of the time, if a robot stops, my wrist buzzes, tells me it stopped, so you'll see me do this and then look like this, because I'm looking for the robot that it told me stopped, okay? But you can tell us. You can also bring up the window. I don't know what they call it now. The Windows Performance Monitor will tell you.
You can also just check your driver station logs because it would tell you.
Yeah, the driver station logs will tell you after a match
But
So
if you're doing it
testing at home.
before, yeah, if you're
The
testing at
home,
home.
you just look at the driver's station log on or test them.
Yes. And when you program the radio at an event, the bandwidth limiter is in the radio, okay? The radio kiosk sets it to 4 meg, okay? The home programmer that you use, there's a checkbox to set it or not. I believe it defaults to set it.
It does.
And it defaults, I believe, the firewall to set too.
Yes.
Okay, because there's also a certain number of ports that you're allowed to use on the field. There's like an array of like 12 ports that you're allowed to use. That's why you can't like push code when you're attached on the field. It blocks that. At home, you can disable both of those if you're doing just like all full-blown testing, that kind of thing. So you can push code to the robot and still run it like you're running it at an FMS field. So, okay. So field monitor, it's one of the things that we really use. You may end up actually seeing it on the driver's station, up above you, if Tim sets them up this year. And in that case, you'll only see, like if you're on the red side, you'll only see the red. If you're on the blue side, you'll only see the blue. You won't see the rest of it. So this was the next one, right? Okay. So RoboRio, okay. RoboRio version 1 has the user code and the firmware in the Rio itself, in memory on the Rio. The version 2, it's on a micro USB card, okay? If you have a version 2, have a copy of that code on another card, okay? I think during ARL, I picked up 2 SD cards, micro SD cards, that popped out, either popped out or were just sitting on it. We never had robots die on the field, so I don't think it popped out. Nobody said that they were missing the card. I went to every team that was on the field during those matches, and nobody said they were missing a card. If you have a 2 and don't know it, like you've never ejected the card before, be wary. That card, if you don't be careful about it, in testing at headquarters, we had those cards coming up like 5 feet off the robot. Okay, it shoots it out of that thing, and they disappear. They're a little tiny, they're fingernail sized, right? So just be prepared, for it. On the field, in the pits, whatever, we are looking at these status lights that are on it. This little block right here on the Rio is the status lights. Please do not cover them with gaff tape, duct tape, opaque plastic sheets, something like that. If your robot dies on the field, it'd be really nice to see those. They're tiny enough as it is, but it would be really nice to see them. We have a list of what each of them does, okay, as they go through, and it starts from the top down as you go through diagnosing your Rio, what it's doing. You turn it on, power light should come on. Okay, power light's going to come on either red or green. You want it to be green. If it's red, you have a short somewhere on your Rio. It means you got swarf, crossing rails, PWM, IO pins, I2C pins. Somewhere you have a short. It's telling you that. Okay. Later on, we have a slide that will tell you how to see which one it is. Okay. The DS actually tells you. So it's kind of a neat little feature. The neat thing about the Rio is it will run with it shorted, but whatever rail is shorted will not work. So if you have it crossing a PWM pin, none of your PWMs will work. Okay? I'm pretty sure almost everybody's using CAN for motors at this point, but you still use PWM for other stuff. Things. Status light. Okay, when Rio first turns on, that status light will turn on solid, and then it'll start doing stuff. Okay, if it just goes off, that's great. That means the Rio's booted. The firmware has loaded. Okay, the microcode on it has loaded. If it starts doing blinking, okay, 2 blinks, 3 blinks, 4, complete constant. Okay, they're different failure modes. So When you first get a brand new Rio, it will be blinking. That's because it's not formatted yet. Okay, so you'll want to go through figure out what's wrong. Go through the manual. The documentation will tell you what to do. If you need to get it into safe mode, is it the center one you said? This one? So if it's in 3 blinks and it's in safe mode, you've either put it into safe mode, which is a special procedure, or that Rio is probably going to end up needing to be replaced. Okay. If it goes into safe mode on its own, it's kind of on its way out at that point. So that's kind of one of those that you want to reimage it. Like if you get that 3 blinks, you definitely want to reimage the thing. Just at least try it. Okay. Radio LED isn't used at this point. You should never see that turn on. If it does, don't worry about it. The original intention for that was before they decided to use the OM radios that we're using, they were going to have a USB radio that plugged right into the Rio. So they never implemented it. Comm light, it's kind of the important one. We're looking at when we're staring at a robot on the field, like everybody's ready to go, but we're standing at a robot staring at it, kind of doing this, we're watching that comm light, okay? Most likely it's red, and it's probably like going red, turn off, red, turn off, red. What it's doing is that's the user code. That's your code loading, trying to load and crashing, okay? It'll do that multiple times. It'll keep trying it. Eventually, it'll turn green, hopefully, okay? Unless you have a serious problem with your code. It should turn green, but that's what we're waiting for, okay? And it may be that Jeremy's sitting there staring at it, and I'm not on the field. I'm off to the side, and I'm watching it wait, and then it's like, okay, let's see if the FTA presence will cause the thing to do it. And I'll like step on the field, it'll turn green and walk away, okay? It happens more than you believe. It's kind of scary. There's a story about that from a Las Vegas event that's a little long for right now that if you want to hear it, I can tell you later, probably tomorrow. But the comm light is the one. When that turns green, we know you're connected. Your stack light in your driver station will turn off. That tells us you're connected. On the previous screen, the white bar here, notice this one's white, these are yellow. White means you are fully ready to go, okay? We're gonna stop troubleshooting your robot at that point. So that gives us a couple different indicators that something, that we're ready. If you're near the scoring table, if you can hear the tones that the stack light makes that tells us it's ready to go, okay? So one that has come up more and more in recent years, this past year was amazing how many times this happened. The Ethernet port, okay? When you're plugged in, both lights should be on. One will be solid, the other one will be flashing. When you're connected, that other one will be flashing really fast, okay? That's the control packets going back and forth between the FMS and your driver station and your Rio. If only one of them is lit, that means that you're in 10 meg mode, like really old Ethernet mode, and it's half duplex, so it doesn't work, okay? So what we'll do is we'll pull the Ethernet cable, plug it back in, reset the Rio, depending on what we can reach, okay, to do that. That's something that we will try to do without even bringing you out on the field, okay? It's something, we already know what the failure mode is. We'll just do it really fast and see if we can fix it, okay? Normally, it does not require a full reboot of the robot. If it does, chances are it comes back again. One thing we found, and I'm trying to remember what their Cave Creek's team number is. They have a Rio that does this like every time, okay? And it's one of those things of if it happens once, it's probably going to keep happening to that. We keep a note of it and be ready for it. Some teams just preemptively, they turn the robot and they wait. They're to the point where they just wait and then they just pull the plug, put it in, they're fixed. We don't have to touch them again. So that's something to keep out, out for if for some reason you're not connecting, but it looks like you should be. Your laptop shows you're connected, but you're not. So, okay. Normal boot sequence. It's kind of, I already walked through it, but this is what we want to see. Okay. Power light. I didn't put the power light on here, did I? No. Power light should be on. Okay. Red or green doesn't matter to us. It matters to you. Okay. You don't want it red. If it is, you want to know why. Okay. Status light should go red, should turn off. Next thing to do, the comm light will go red, and then comm light will go off and then come green. Okay. You may get it, like I said, you may get it bouncing between these two a little bit. Ideally you shouldn't, but some Rios don't load code the first time. So one I didn't get on here was the RSL. Okay, so your flashing yellow light on your robot. There's a red light here that also flashes at the same time. All the light on your robot is just an extension of this. So if it's flashing, your robot's enabled if it's wired properly. That light, if you just give it power and ground, will flash by itself. That's the default mode for it. You need to use that jumper to the two outside pins to cause it to go solid. Okay. I don't like flashing RSLs when I'm on the field. If for some reason it's not jumpered properly, we won't fix it out on the field unless it's very simple. Okay. What I'll do is I'll just pull the cable so that it doesn't flash when it's not enabled. I'd prefer it to just be off. So that RSL, even though it looks like all it's doing is either on or flashing, actually does give us info. If your battery's dying, you're undervolting, you're going down, and your robot's like hitching, okay, chances are the RSL is also doing it, and it tells us you probably have a bad battery. I'm going to go behind your driver's station, and I'm going to watch the battery indicator to see if it's flashing red. Okay, and if it is, I'm going to point it out to your coach or something like that. I'm not going to bother the drivers, but I will, point it out to the coach so that they can see it and tell you what's going on. Okay, radio. There's a good amount of info the radio lights give us. Okay, they seem to be pretty simple, but mostly what we're looking for on the field is this one here. Okay, your Wi-Fi LED should be solid green when you're attached to the field. If on the field it ever turns red or orange, okay, sometimes it's hard to tell which one it is. That means you're probably not programmed. Okay, you're programmed still as an access point, not as a bridge, and that means we need to reprogram you. If you are one of the first robots powered on and we see that, we probably have time to program you. Okay, it doesn't take that long to do, especially if you follow build designs and we can take the radio off the robot and take it over and plug it in. Okay, if your robot has to go over to the station to plug in and use robot power to do it, we probably won't be able to plug you in. So the one thing that gets some people is the power up sequence. Okay, when you first power it on, that power light is going to turn on. Okay, it's going to flash a little bit, it's going to turn on, it's going to go solid, then it's going to turn off again. The entire thing is going to look like it just died. Okay, it's going through a second boot. The first one is it's looking for a controller in the ceiling of a building. Okay, these things are actually meant for like schools and office buildings. Okay, to be just in the ceiling. So what it's doing is the first one, it's looking for a controller. The second time, it's actually booting up fully. Okay, you'll see that at the kiosk. It won't take a config at the kiosk until it's done that second boot. Okay. I'm trying to think what else really. Oh, the power. Okay. You can use the 12-volt jack plugged into a VRM or one of the special low current channels on the PDH, or you can use the 12-volt passive PoE injectors. Okay, if you use those, it needs to be plugged into next to the barrel jack. Okay, the port on the outside is a PoE port, but it's expecting commercial, like enterprise PoE, which we're not giving it. And you can do both. You don't have to have just one. Okay, they both go to a bus, so if one disconnects, the other one's still there. If they're both coming off the same VRM or something like that, and it's the VRM that's the problem, you're going to lose power anyway. So make sure if you're using both that they actually come from two separate sources. Okay. And the big one, it takes 45 plus seconds for that thing to go from power on to connected. Okay. Some of them will take 60, some will take 2 minutes. It's kind of, kind of a crapshoot as to which you get. That is something that the new radio, which I don't know if you saw the blog, will be on Robots at Championships this year. Okay, the new radio will be there. We are trying to get it at our Arizona events. Okay, they want the championship FTAs to be familiar with them, and my argument there is the only way to get me familiar with it is to put it on my robots at my events. Okay, we have 2 events back to back. That gives them a good chance to do that. So the radio powers up 4 to 6 seconds. You're connected.
So if you take a hit and it loses power, you're back in 4 to 6 seconds.
4 to 6 seconds, the radio is powered. Your Rio will still have to connect because of the user code will have to boot again. But
That's usually quicker than
it can be, yeah. So they ran the radios at test events during the off season this year, and apparently they ran beautifully. Said the biggest problem was getting them back from the teams. So they were literally had to stand at the side of the field on their last match and pull the radios off the robots so that they knew they had them. But I will see it the last weekend of January. I go to New Hampshire for my FTA training on this year's field, and we will see the radios there. We will get to play with them. We've been promised. Is there anything else that you can think of?
I think the only thing was making sure that both the radio power module and the Rio are not plugged into the switchable port on the PDH.
I put that one
That's
on.
later. Okay.
Hey, look at that. This was a work in progress until about 10 minutes before I left the house today. So I'm calling out specifically the PDH and not the PDP. Okay, the PDP is a pretty well-known, we've been using it for since what, 2016 now, something like that, 2016, 2017, I can't remember which, maybe even 2015. But the PDH is still kind of a black box for some stuff. Okay, we actually learned this at ARL this year, particularly these low current ports right here. Okay, you have 20 high current ports, up to 40 amp breakers can be in them. Okay, and list the wire sizes. I was actually kind of surprised that they can take 24 gauge wire. I was kind of shocked. I figured that it would kind of literally cut the wire off, but they can take 24 gauge wire. The low current ones, okay, there's 4 ports over here that are low current. So like your Rio will be plugged into it, your radio, stuff like that. They're 15 amp max breakers, okay. The one on the bottom, okay, is called out as a switched port, okay, and it's got a red border around it. It's a switch port. It's a relay port. If you've been here a while, think it's a spike, okay. It's an old spike, except it's 15 amps. I think a spike you could have 20, something like that. I can't remember. The manual actually says it, but nobody knew it was there really. Do not plug anything critical into this port that has to have power at all times, okay? Even if you don't tell it to switch off, it defaults to on, so you have to tell it to turn off, okay? We found a couple robots during ARL, they had their Rios or radios plugged in there, and they were taking hits and the robot was rebooting. We could not find the problem, okay? we pour over these things, checking power from battery all the way through, and robots were like incredibly tight connections. It's like, how does this happen? It turned out that they were plugged in. They had either a radio or a Rio plugged into here. And what it was you'd hit the PDH and you'd cause that relay to open and they would lose power. So that took some work to figure out. It was like, once they figured out, I went through the pits. I made sure everybody was plugged in properly. So one other thing, the terminals, the battery terminals on these guys, you can plug 4-gauge wire. It is sized for 4. It's not sized for 2. Okay, 2 will fit. It will physically fit in the port, but that lever right there does not snap down properly. Okay, those wires can come out, and you have a very high resistance connection there. Okay, so it will fit. 4, it will close properly. Okay, but 2, you're running into issues. One thing I actually found out with this, because I went and pulled this image. If you get a new PDH, the ones that they're shipping now, they've changed the connectors for the low current and the CAN. They're no longer the push button Weidmuller type like they've had. They are actual Wago levers now. Okay, they've changed that. I literally found that out this afternoon. So toolless. So you can just flip them up, put the wire in, put it down. Just they're small versions of these. So, but they did do a change on that.
So there's no Weidmuller on the new PDH at all?
Nope, they've completely removed them. So, and this guy has LEDs on every channel. All the channels. The board itself has one. It's a really tiny thing, like right here. Like I said, there's way too many patterns to put up here. We'd have 4 slides just for patterns because it does, it's the one, particularly this one down here is an RGB. So it does all kinds of colors, on it. The other ones do give you info. If you have a blown breaker, like the breaker itself is not resetting, it will tell you on the port. So it's kind of neat. So, and they suggest that their term was a smart tug for testing wires on it. I kind of thought that was an interesting, thing. So, and minimum wire, it can take these wire sizes. The minimums are in the manual for the amp draw of what you're doing. Whatever the breaker or fuse is, you need to have that wire minimum sized according to what the manual says. Okay. So, this is where I started having a little bit of fun. This is, troubleshooting a robot, right? I'm standing on the side of the field. I'm the secondary FTA at this event, okay? The first event of a truck for each season, they have 2 FTAs because we typically have to do first event modifications to the field. So they like to have 2 people that saw it happen at headquarters. So I was on the side, kind of watching. It's always neat when a CSA is sitting on the field. Okay, I mean, it's like, can you imagine sitting? What is happening when you're sitting there, right? Not a lot, right? Okay. So then it turned into how many are there, right? I had 3 plus the FTA, sitting there. Pretty much at this point, there's only one thing left that you have to do, and she's doing it now. You're staring up to the heavens like what it is. As soon as she did that and I got the picture taken, the field went green. So, but yeah, she was pretty much done with this robot by this time, right? Oop. That's a better one. This is Jasmine. Most of you in here are probably too young to have known Jasmine at all. But Jasmine was a mechanical engineer at headquarters, okay? This was her first FTA event after designing mechanisms for the Steamworks field. Okay, this was her having to deal with her own design. Okay, you knew Jasmine, right? Yeah. So, yeah, this was her dealing with the lift, the springs. So, yeah, that was her design. She spent that entire event trying to figure out, why did I do this? Okay, but I figured that there's pictures like this of me out there from 2022 Flagstaff. There's got to be, you know, after dealing with that hub. So, but I thought that one was fun. Okay, these were ones that he ran into. Okay, this robot dies on the field. How can we figure out what happened? You know, they got great amount of tape around the outside. The lights for the Rio are right here. It's like, yeah, I don't know whose these are. I do not know. Yeah, no, you guys cover the radio. That's what you do. Which I believe is actually up here, right? I can't tell, is that one? So this is what we're trying to diagnose on the side of the field for a dead robot, okay? So this one, I'm trying to remember what this one was. You had this one.
Yeah.
Is it upside down?
It is, yeah. Your
Okay.
Rio's right here.
Yeah. Little hard to see the lights on it, see the, you know, any indicators on that one, right? So wiring doesn't look bad. But this was one of mine. You know, this one, great. We can see all the lights here. I can see the comm light, so I know the Rio's connected, but I would never be able to tell you what the radio's doing at any given time. So at least we had one indicator of what was going on. But I also love the 20 pounds of aircraft cable here. But I figured these right here, like they took a manipulator off. There was a superstructure on here that they just wrapped the cable to, kept center of gravity low. So, battery security and safety. Okay. Battery mounting, cable ties, zip ties, tie wraps, whatever brand you want to call it, right? They are not a method of securement of a battery. Okay. Even the 120 pounders that we use to hold the glass on the side of the field, that battery will come out. Okay. If I can take that robot, have your kids flip it upside down and drop it, and that battery comes out, it's not secured. Okay. Or tear the head off the robot if you're 2403. Yeah. Lugs and connectors, okay, from battery all the way through, including on the breaker. The ones that you put 20 pounds of electrical tape on, okay, need to make sure that they are secured, they are tight, they do not move, okay. Make sure they're properly crimped, okay. Get a crimper that is properly sized for 6 gauge, 4 gauge, 2 gauge if you're doing it. A screwdriver in a vise is not a proper crimp. Yes, it works sometimes. I know, Caden, yes, it works. But get the proper crimper, okay? More often than not, when a robot dies on the field and it's a full power cycle, I bet I make money if I bet on every time it happens during an event, I will come out ahead that it's one of the ones on the breaker. Okay, he can, the head nod over here is pretty good, right? Even when people, teams were having problems with radios for years, and they were blaming the barrel jacks, okay? I believe I counted 1 or 2 over all the matches that I watch and diagnose that it was actually the barrel. And they were because the barrel was undersized. The kit in 1 year came with undersized barrels. So it's always, always the terminals on the breaker. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a published first spec for those lugs?
Turn it till it breaks and back off half a turn. I mean, there is, yes. We should probably have it. I bet Austin has the data sheet for it somewhere.
seems like it's so common, there ought to be some way to solve that, but I know we haven't really found a good way to keep it from eventually working with.
Split rings would be, pressure washers would be, they come with star washers on them that are supposed to dig in. The problem is if you use those and you take it off, you're supposed to replace that nut with the washer on it. Those are one-time use. So think of them as the oil plug on a car, the crush washer. They're really, those are one-time use. So, okay. This was one I added, so he probably hasn't seen this one yet. I was not happy with where that breaker was. So, it's right next to the spur, the gears on the gearbox. So if I had to go in and, in a hurry and crush that, press that thing because these gears are spinning, I'm probably more likely to fill up your robot over at this point. Pretend it's on fire. So that and a game piece could easily hit that one, for the most part. So this was the first time that I saw the inside of a breaker. I thought that was pretty cool over here. This was two robots that went inside each other. They both got red carded for it because they both went inside each other and caused damage to the other one. This guy, I think, came out ahead in the fact that he took this guy's breaker with him, or at least half of it. So this was good. This was a Finals 2 at an off-season in Colorado that 4 robots were damaged beyond repair. We could not run Finals 3. So, yeah, that was an interesting end to an event. So, you can't see it probably, the text on it. Oh, man. There's the black air tank that's over here has great text on it that says, do not mount this do not mount it where it can be exposed to being hit. Like everything that you're not supposed to do that they did, and had it fully turned on purpose so that we saw the writing on it. So that's one of the old black clipper tanks. So is this going to work?
It should. Hit next again.
Will it start, or
It should.
do I have to?
If you hit the next button.
Oh, there we go. Okay, tell me when you think you see what's wrong. Okay, this is the starter for a pickup truck. Okay, there's a very highly corroded, very high resistance connection. That right there is what can happen on your robot if your terminals are like just moving. Okay, it can glow like that and not pull so much current right away that it pops that breaker. The breaker is not an instant release. Okay, you ever wonder how you can pull? You have a 120 amp breaker and you're running 8 Neos on your robot at 40 amps apiece, and they're running at 40 amps. Have you ever tried to figure out why your robot's still running? Okay, it should be gone at that point. That breaker will run at 600 amps for about 5 seconds. It'll run at 120, 150 for minutes. So your robot can run past 120. Okay, I wouldn't suggest it, but it could. So, DS, okay. Different things we need. Make sure Windows Firewall is disabled, okay. As many of them as you can see on your laptop. You may not be able to see the domain one, okay.
It's kind of hard to see.
Yeah, on the DS, on the diagnostic tab, it can tell you if you have firewall still on. It'll tell you which ones are on. If it doesn't have a green light right here, it'll tell you public, domain, private one, which one it is, okay? Your team number, especially if you're running off seasons, that kind of stuff. Make sure the correct team's in there. Your controllers. When the controllers are plugged in, don't be touching the sticks, okay? My son can tell you that when he first played with my Nintendo 64, he couldn't figure out why Mario was looking off to the corner for Mario, Super Mario 64 in the demo screen, okay? And I asked him, were you holding the controller when you plugged it in or turned it on? You know, and he said, yeah. I said, okay, turn it off, turn it back on. It calibrates. All these can calibrate now. There's a couple people in here that can probably remember having to calibrate joysticks for Windows machines. Do you remember? Yeah. You don't have to do that anymore, right? As well as which spot they're in. Okay, make sure that if you press a button, move a stick, it's going to flash here. If it happens to be the one that you're clicked on, you'll see the movement over here. But it'll at least flash the port. Okay, so you know you're on the right one. Ethernet dongle, make sure you have them. If you need it, if your laptop doesn't have an Ethernet port, make sure you actually have the dongle with you. We do carry spares, but they disappear over time. Okay, every year I buy 3 or 4 more, just so I have them. And bonus points, like I said, if you have a spare already, you have one attached to your DS or something like that, ready to go. So, when I was talking about earlier, I don't think it's on this screen. No. Earlier about the diagnostics, if you have power crossed, one of the tabs over here is a lightning bolt. That tab will have info that will tell you which rail is crossed if you have any crossed. And it'll tell you the readings for voltage and that kind of stuff. So, setup of the robot on the field. Okay. Practice. Figure out how the cart needs to be positioned for people to pick up the robot, pull the cart away from it so that they can go through the gate. The gate's a little over 2.5 feet wide. Okay. It doesn't work if you have a robot that's 2.5 feet wide itself and you're both carrying it sideways and going this way through it. Okay. Figure out how to carry it through. This year, and that's another slide later, this year you are allowed to bring a cart on the field. Okay. But it's a specifically small-sized cart on purpose, so it fits through the gate, doesn't affect anything. So there was a blog post about that, so you can pull it from there. It will be in the game manual too. Okay, make sure all your cables are plugged in. Power injectors. When you plug them in, there should be an audible click. You should feel it. You should hear it. Okay, if your robot disconnects and I see the lights are off on the Ethernet, I'm going to look and see if I see that the connector pulled out, and if it is, I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to have one of your kids squeeze it, and it's kind of really cool the when it happens, the click. So, power the robot on as soon as you can when placing on the field. Okay, even if you're worried about gyros and all that, put the reset function in your auto init, in your robot init, whatever, so that it resets it. The longer the gyro stays on and powered, the better it actually gets. It heats up, okay? It gets up to operating temperature. So design it for minimal setup on the field, okay? Field elements move. The sidewalls, the alliance walls, they move. They're within tolerance when the field is first built, okay? I will tell you, like I said, I want transparency here. The published documentation is 1 inch for almost everything on the field. Okay, that's not ours though. Our tolerance is less than 1/2 inch. Okay, so when it's first built, it will be less than that, but 1 inch is the tolerance. Okay, and if it does get out, we're gonna the next planned break we will adjust. We'll put plastic under. We'll move the walls back in, that kind of thing. Make sure your robot's on before leaving the field. Okay. So, something like that, we will fix. So, this happened because the field was actually wet. If you've ever wanted a water game, this is why you don't want a water game. Okay, that piece of wall has Velcro under it, and it still got pushed out that far. Dang Hawaiian kids. Okay, so. This is the new cart rule. Okay, 2 foot 6 inch by 3 foot is what the size that they said it was going to be. So these, put your team number on everything that comes to the field. Okay. This is my robot barf box at Champs in 2019. Okay, which one was this?
That's a battery.
That's the battery? Okay. Hey, I have a oh, I think that was a laptop, the back end of a laptop. Yeah, I have a laptop. I have a radio over here that I didn't leave in there. Oh yeah, there's the other half of the front of the laptop. They at least had their number on it. Bumpers. I had a full set of blue bumpers. No, I had 2 full sets of blue bumpers for the same robot.
At least you know who they were.
Yeah. They came, their next blue match, they came with no bumpers on the robot. And one of the coach came up to me sheepishly asking, we can't find our bumpers. I told him, I'll sell you a set. And I lifted up I had them under the table. I lifted it up and showed it to him. And they said, you can buy 2. And I showed him the other set. And he's like, really? So these were just cool. She's using her wand to turn the page for him. So this is the FTA that I worked with in San Diego, or Del Mar. Man, I wish this projector was better. She's out cold on his back. She's got the cutest pink earmuffs on, safety glasses, out cold next to the field. So, yeah, this is the San Diego venue. No walls on the ends. And you can't quite see it, but the ground is wet all over here because we had sideways rain. This is me next to the field that was hitting the Alliance station on the blue side. So, why you don't want a water game. The sandstorm curtain that year was horizontal on one side, on the other side it was plastered to the glass. We broke, I don't know how many of those gearboxes that rolled them up because it couldn't pull it through the water tension. So we eventually stopped using them. So, and this is fun stuff. This was 2019 when I was doing Einstein finals. When I walked over to Minute Maid Park, I had to be over there like 5 hours ahead of you guys. If you were there, I can't remember. Were you guys there in 2019?
Yeah.
That's right. You were. Yeah. So this was me, coming up to an empty stadium. I could hear there were maintenance workers or like concession or something like that way back here. I could fully hear their conversation when I came in the right field wall. The acoustics in there is just amazing. So, when I first walked up and then from second base, going in. But I thought that was a cool picture. My partner going, what the heck is that? Because we're hearing sounds. 3 minutes? Okay. Because we're hearing sounds. We're like, what are the sounds we're hearing? At this one was when they did the announcement for the 2020 game was the Star Wars Force for Change. So they had R2 there. They had 2 of them. They had this one was the one they eventually used on the field, but they also had the Force Awakens movie hero prop there, and we got to play with them. They gave us the controllers. We got to run them around. They didn't want them on the dirt, so they had them on the concourse in the back. This one is the one that you saw on the dirt. Was an extra one. So we were over there, like I said, 5 hours ahead of everybody else because we had to check the field. They built the field on Friday, and we went over to do our compliance checks for it and found a whole crap load of things wrong. So, no, that never happens. So, this is me leaving, or after it was all done, and the field's all packed in the cases, and I'm headed out to the after party. So, but yeah, Lake Del Mar. This was the continuing of the rain stuff. There used to be pits over here. We had to move several pits because they had several inches of water in them in the morning. So, yeah. When you need somebody to crawl into the, what do they call it? The hab? The hab? Yeah. We had to flip the top pieces over, and this became a reason why we use PEM nuts in just about everything now, because you couldn't undo the bolts without having somebody underneath for 15 bolts or 15 nuts to do it. So we found the skinniest of my field reset guys to crawl in there. So this was as you guys were filing in, it was getting louder and louder in there, and I turned around and went, holy crap, there's a lot of people in here. So I just, did this from my spot. So, anybody have any questions on like what we do at all out here? Can we build robots that have radios and Rios where we can see them? Yeah, I know.
Part of it's been fun.
Yeah.
The new.
I didn't know this had happened. Frank took that Jasmine's picture and put it as part of the recruiting thing. Can you read it back there? So it says, job openings in FIRST robotics competition. This could be you. It says, I got a master's degree in mechanical engineering for MIT for this. So, yeah. So yeah, Frank was one of the best, I'll call him bosses that I've ever had. He was awesome. As FTAs, we are not employed by FIRST. Think of us as contractors. We're the on-site presence, but we are not paid by FIRST. They do pay our expenses for the right for them to send us anywhere. I've told them they can send me to Sydney. You have another FTA, so if Sydney opens up. Yeah. So, but yeah. Okay.